Hi everyone and welcome to Darlene's Creative Studio. Today is December 31st, 2019, and starting in January, tomorrow, I will be working on a challenge. I'm going to be selecting a prompt and working on that specific prompt each day that I will put inside a journal that I'm working on. So I spent a few days last week going through and making up some ideas of prompts, and I made a big long list, and I posted them on an art group that I'm in and shared them with them. And what I'm going to do is I printed them all on these little business cards, and I was going to get some kind of a carousel and put them inside the carousel and just choose one each day. I haven't decided how I'm going to select them, whether I'm going to do it randomly or set up each day in advance. I'm going to be doing that later this afternoon. But these are some of the prompts that I have, and I'm going to do it for all of January. So I'm going to do 31 prompts. But some of them are let's play with tags, try a new distress ink, find a vintage image to use, add some bits of fabric, use a die cut in your project, revamp a clothing tag, add a button or two. There's all kinds of different prompts. Make a pocket of some kind, work with an old photograph, use some words in your work. Let's add a little charm. Drag out your bead stash. Sorry, you can probably hear the washing machine in the background. I'm in Florida at a condo that we rent each year, so this is what I'm going to be doing in January. And to start this off with, I will actually attach a link to the prompts if anyone wants to follow along or do something similar. And then I'll figure out, like I say, if I'm going to just randomly pick one or if I'm actually going to just use the, put the prompts in order sort of thing. But these are the prompts that I have, and I have over 31 of them, so I just have to pick 31 out. I've got my little setup here. I'm on one half of a dining room table in the middle of the dining room in this condo. And I've decided to use, for this specific challenge, this binder type. I'm going to turn it into a journal or a folio or a planner or something. But I received these when I was doing the documented life planner about 2016, 17. I ordered these, and they're a nice size. I just love the size of these. I'm hoping I can get some more. They are about 7.5 inches by 9.25 inches, and they have a nice thick spine. It's about a 1 3/4 inch spine, and inside it has a little binder clip. And this little binder clip, you can unscrew it from the two little screws. So you take it out. On the back, it has these little bases, and they stay in there. They're actually twisted in there, and then you just screw into the column there. So you can take this out and cover this with fabric, cover the inside with whatever you're going to put on the inside, and then put the binder clip back in. And that's what I'm going to be working on. And then I will be, as I'm decorating it and filling it, I will use these prompts, and each day I'll have to use that prompt within the journal. So I've taken this binder and I'm going to grab some fabrics. I recently went to a thrift store. One of our craft groups get together in a church, and it has a little thrift store, and I grabbed this fabric. Now this fabric is cotton. It is an old nurse's uniform, and they have some really funky materials now for the nurses' uniforms. And I walked by and I saw this, and these are my favorite colors. Blues and greens are my favorite colors. So I grabbed this. This was one of their tops. I threw it in the washing machine when I got home, and then I ripped it up the seams. It actually had some wear and tear on the sides and near the sleeves. So I just cut up the seams and cut it all out. So this was the back. I've already cut something out of this one, but this was the back piece. And I am going to be using this to cover the outside of this binder, and I'm going to turn the edges in, and then when I unscrew the binder on the inside, I will put some paper or fabric on the inside and then put this back in and then start filling the insides. So that's what I'm going to be working on for this challenge, is this binder. I also brought, I brought along with me some cardstock And I grabbed some colors, and I'm going to be using these as the monthly dividers, or the dividers. I don't even know if it's going to be monthly, but the dividers. So I've chosen this kind of sagey blue, or green actually. It's almost a little bit green. And then this blue. And then I also have some black that I can use. So these are the colors that I'm going to be putting on the inside of the journal. And then I will be adding tea stain pages and that sort of thing as well. So that's what I'm going to be working on. And I'm going to start by covering the journal or the binder with the fabric. And all I've done is I laid my piece of fabric out, and I'm going to pretend this little piece, this is a little cutting mat. Pretend this is the fabric, and I laid that down and I put my binder on it like this, and I just took a pen and I outlined the whole binder on the fabric, and then I left myself 3/4 of an inch all the way around. So I drew the shape of the binder, removed the binder, took my ruler and just went 3/4 of an inch from that outline and made little ticks, and I actually cut it out 3/4 of an inch wider than my drawing. Now I'll just show you how far I've gotten. I started working on it. So this is the binder with the little binding clip taken out and the 2 screws. And see, it has a little post here, and the screws go down into the post, and they're pretty much secured in there, so I didn't take those off. So this is my fabric. And again, I laid it out, traced it, so you can see where I've traced it. And then I measured 3/4 of an inch out and just made little ticks, and then I cut it with my pinking shear. So this is actually going to turn in like this, and I'm going to glue that on the inside. And then I will put a fabric on here, and I'll have to punch the 2 holes out of that. So I've already glued one side down using my Fabri-Tac. And I'm just going to flip it over and start on the other side. Sorry again for the washing machine in the background. It's a very small condo. Okay, and then I'm just going to start, and I'm going to do a little bit at a time. I'm not going to glue the whole side. I'm just going to do a little bit at a time. And I'm using Fabri-Tac because I'm using the fabric. I do have the glitter glue and other things like that. So now I'm going to take my little brayer here, and I'm just going to move that over, and I'm going to pull this over, and I'm going to make sure it's straight, and I'm just going to go down the center like that and then out. And that way it doesn't skew my fabric in a funny way. Okay, so I'm doing that, and then there is a little tiny indent right here in the binder, and you can feel it. I'm just going to slide my fingers along that and just push down in that little indent to stretch the fabric a little bit, so that when I open it up, it'll stretch. So I'm just going to hold that for a second. You can actually feel the glue seeping through the fabric if you hold your finger there long enough. And then I'm just going to lift it up again, and I always make sure you glue right to the edge. You want to make sure you get right to your edges so that when you pull the fabric, it'll be right to the edge. Even though we're going to tuck it into the inside, I still like to make sure I get to the edge so you don't get a little pucker or anything like that. And I just do a little bit at a time. I don't want to do too much at a time because I want to try and keep this fabric straight. So we'll just roll that out. Like that. And we'll go back in, and we'll do a little bit more. Actually, we'll finish it off. We may as well go right to the edge. I've noticed the Fabri-Tac. I purchased mine at Walmart, and I noticed the Fabri-Tac has a different cap on it. I think they used to do it this way before. It just has this little red cap that pops onto the top. When you pull it off, to open it up, I just take my little awl and shove it down into the hole, and it creates a hole in there, but try and shove it down as far as you can so that you make the hole big enough. I found the first time I only put it down so far, and the hole was so tiny it took forever for the glue to come out. Okay, so let's put this down like this, and we're going to go across the center. Working with the Fabri-Tac, because it has the acetone or whatever in it, be very careful when you're doing this on anything that's wooden. I did this on a dining room table when I was doing some fabric. Actually, I was doing some paper, and I glued something, and I set the paper down to dry, and it actually took the the varnish off the top of the table because it had seeped through. So I have an old cutting mat is my base, and then these are drying mats, sorry, for your dishes, and then this is just an old cutting mat that I got at Walmart. There was a 3-pack, and I put that underneath just to make sure nothing seeps through onto the table because I'm using their dining room table. So there we go, and we're going to let that dry. And again, just push your fingers into those little seams, fingernails or an awl or something, just to kind of get that seam, so that when we flip this over, see, now we have our 3/4 inch edge. And I always start with the ends, but what I'm going to do is take my scissors and I'm just going to clip some little edges so that when I pull this in, it'll just glue in. So I'm going to grab my scissors and I'm just going to clip these corners, not all the way to the end, just in slightly. That. There's 4, and I'll do this corner as well. So I'm just going to do it at the straight edge. Sorry, you probably can't see that because I'm in limited space here. Like that. And then this one, I may have to clip it one more time, but we're going to start with 4 and see how that works. Okay, so let's start with this smaller edge. And glue that over. And you want to pull it nice and tight with your fingers. So you're pulling it over that little edge there. Pull it nice and tight. Like that. And then I'm just going to add a dab of glue here. And I'm going to pull each of these little pieces in. And add a little bit more glue there. I'm just kind of wiping the top of the glue bottle there onto the top. And a big goop. Like that. And then I'll do this edge. So you can see when I pull it over, like that. It will give me a nice corner there. And you can trim this one off if you like. Don't need to have it all there. Like that. So now when I put my fabric on, it will go up to the corner. So I'm just going to flip this around and do this side first. I just wanted to show you that corner. Quickly do this edge. And pull that over. So this could actually be my prompt. Let's work with some fabric, but I'm going to save that prompt because I might want to use it for making some kind of a tab or something like that. So I'm going to leave that prompt, but I just wanted to get the binder started. And again, I was packing for this trip and I was trying to pick up things that I knew I would use, that I had in my closet. I've been purging, trying to clear out my closets and stuff, purging stuff, and this was some of the things that I found, like this nurse's shirt. I had in my stash, and I thought, why not try and use up some of the stuff that you have rather than go out and buy new things. Let's try and use up the stash that we have. So I'm going to work on projects with items that I have already in stock. So I'm just going to pull the center piece up and glue that on first. You should always start with the center and move your way out. And I didn't with that one corner because I just wanted to show you how I did it. And again, you can trim that one little piece back in there. There you go. So you don't end up with quite a big bulky corner there. It's stuck to my thumb. There. And again, you can roll this flat. There. So there is my, I'm just going to flip this around. There are my corners, nice and round. And we're going to work on this side now. Oops, take my lid off. And just glue this really quickly. And again, I want to start from the middle and work my way to the outer edges. So we're going to flip this little guy up here and hold that down. And then I'm just going to go back in here and glue these quickly. And that one, I'm just going to pull it nice and tight. And I'm going to trim this little bit off here. That's it. Make sure that there's some glue on top of that piece so it will grab. And then just like that. And again, you don't have to worry about too much as long as your edge is done, because you're going to be putting more fabric on the inside of this. Let me just pull these ones up. Put a little bit of glue there. I'm just going to trim that little, oops, bit off there. Of course, everything's at a weird angle, right? Here we go. And again, we're just going to pull those edges up. And I'm just going to flatten that out a bit. So there is my, and I'm going to let that glue dry thoroughly before I bend my binder, because I don't want it to pull my corners off. So I'm going to let that dry thoroughly, make sure it's nice and tight. And you can go in and add some glue if you feel like you haven't got under some of these pieces. But again, I'm going to be adding something to the inside of this. So that is the cover, all done. And then I will put my insides in, and then we'll just set this back on those little things and screw the screws back in. But I'm going to do the inside cover next. For the inside, I think I'm going to use some of the scraps of this material and cut a piece that I can put down the center like this. And then I will cover the insides with some paper. I might even do like a trifold or something on this side, but then I can use paper here. So I've just taken a piece of the scrap and I'm going to lay it down on here. So it's got to be wider than this because I want the paper to go up to that. So we're going to make it, I'm going to go with this. It was just a piece of the scrap, and I've just used my pinking shears to go around the edges of the material. And then once I get it laid on, I'm going to give it a little pull, because when it's wet it stretches a bit. And I'm just going to take a marker here and mark the hole, and I already did this, and I've just stuck the marker in that little pin to mark where the holes are going to be, like that. And then I have this tool, it's a hole punch, and I'm going to take my material, and this is my cutting mat, and I'm just going to lay this, it's got a little hole in the top, and you just lay that over that hole and push down, and it cuts a little hole in the fabric like that. And I'm hoping this is going to be big enough to go around that post. It might not. I may have to make it a little bigger. There. So there's my little hole. These are great instead of using your crocodile when you haven't got your crocodile to take with you. It just punches holes. I think it's a hole punch for making leather. Oh, there it goes perfectly. So that will just fit over top of that, and then I will glue this piece down into the center like that. And then I'll decide whether I'm going to put paper or, you know, that'll be part of my project. Oops, I'm going to just, everything's sticking to me here. I'm going to start at one end, and I can't decide. I think I'm going to put the glue on the actual fabric. And just do it in strips because it sticks to the fabric. And you want to make sure you get it right around that hole and down the edges. Oops. And I'm just going to start with this piece here like that. And let's get it on the post, and then I'll glue onto the actual binder itself. Okay, so let's get that on there. And when you're doing Fabri-Tac, always kind of push down with your fingers, and you can feel that it's cold, so that means it's still wet. And just kind of hold it in place. And you can feel the glue coming through. Like that. And then I'm just going to lift it up and pull it to as far as the glue is, and you can actually feel it tug a bit. And I'm just going to go up and down the center here, and on that little piece, and down this side, like that. And give it a pull. I want to make sure my hole is still lined up. And again, just slide along, keep everything nice, and you want to keep it on. There's those little bends from the binder. You want to keep those like that. And again, you'll feel it. Okay, I'm just going to lift that little piece up, and we're going to glue this last piece in. Make sure you put enough around that little stump, and pull it down over your little post. And there we go. And again, we're going to let this all dry nice and thoroughly before I start bending anything. And then you'll have to bend it a couple of times to get it to its shape. But that's how we're going to do that. So you can either put your little binder back in when this is dry by sliding that on there like that, and then just adding your little screws back in. That. Put this guy back in. You don't want to strip them, you just want to make sure they're tight, but don't strip them. Okay, so we're going to let that dry. And then we will do all our little bending. Put my little punch back. Again, this is a leather punch, and it comes with about 6 different heads. You just unscrew this and pull the little cap out. These are great because you can punch a hole anywhere. As long as you have it on a cutting mat, you don't want to punch through because it'll actually go right through the fabric and the desk and everything. Right onto and cut through the desk. So, and it's a leather hole punch. Okay, so let's let that dry. As I work on the binder and my prompts, I created this little book. It was going to be for a challenge. I created this little book for myself using tea stained paper, and it has little smaller size paper. It was all my scraps that I used up from my tea staining. And what I think I'm going to do is when I choose my prompt for the day, after I've done it, I'm going to actually glue it into my little book here, and I'm going to write the number of, so day 1, 2, 3. I'll add a little number here, and that will be what I actually worked on for the day. And then I think on the back I'm going to write what I actually worked on. So if I've selected this collage, prompt. I'll put number 1 here, and then on the back I'm going to flip this over, and just with a marker I'm going to write, I collaged a piece of paper, or whatever I decided to work on with a collage, an envelope, etc., etc. So I'm going to stop there, and we will start on January 1st with our first prompt. I'm going to post each prompt on my Instagram account, and then I'm going to create a video using the prompt, and I'll start with January 1st, but I may actually make videos. It depends on how long the prompt takes me to make. I may put 2 or 3 days together, or just work on one prompt at a time. Again, it depends on how long it takes me to do that prompt. So thanks so much for watching. I look forward to my January 1st challenge, and I hope you follow along. And if you don't want to follow along on YouTube, please check out my Instagram account. It's listed below in the description, and I will try and figure out how to add the list of prompts there as well. Thanks so much for watching.